Hi, my name is Dr. Yvonne Larrier, and I am here at the Grace Place on April 9th, I believe, 2016. And we're here today to talk with Pastor Hyveth Williams, the senior pastor at the Grace Place, South Bend, Indiana. She has a story to tell. This month, April, is the National Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, and she's going to share with us her story and how she is participating and partnering with GC Squad and R&J Designs to shine a light on child abuse. Welcome, Pastor Hyveth.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's my privilege and pleasure to do this, to shine a light on child abuse, because it's such a terrible thing that affects a person throughout their lifetime.
Mm-hmm. And the data shows, the statistics show that every 10 seconds in the U.S., a child is abused or raped.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure that awareness is brought, and not just in the U.S., but across the globe.
Yes, yes.
Because we find that it's even more pervasive in countries developing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I was born in Jamaica, and it is a problem, a major problem. It's one of the big secrets in the islands. But the thing that I want to address is the fact that most people think that people who are abused come from very poor families, or they never make any professional advances. And I want to tell my story to say, yes, I was abused, molested when I was a child, from the time I was 2 years old till I was about 15.
Wow.
And it really threw me off my game. Originally, in my teen years, I became very promiscuous. I drank a lot, I used drugs and all of those things. And my life could have been destroyed. Actually, it felt like my life was destroyed. Until Christ came into my life, I had no hope. I attempted suicide 3 times because the pain was so terrible, and there was no way to articulate it, and I didn't think people would understand if I tried to explain it. And also the big shame that this happened to me, and I felt like it was my fault. So I thought suicide was the best way out. Then Christ came into my life, and I began to hope again. And through that, I've had therapy, and I've worked my way through it, and now I can say I'm truly free. And I'm not ashamed. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do it, and I went back to school, got my education, and now I'm working as a professional and trying to let people know that you don't have to be afraid or ashamed to tell someone what has happened to you, because the problem is the big secret. The secret is what holds us hostages. So talk to somebody. If you want to, call me at the Grace Place in South Bend, Indiana. I'd be glad to talk with you.
Thank you. So could you give me a little bit more detail?
Yeah.
You said from the age of 2 to 15.
Yes.
Was it a family member? Who was the perpetrator?
Yes, it was several different family members. The first person was a cousin who was in his teens, so he obviously had been abused in order to think about that. And it was more digital penetration.
Okay.
But when I became about 9 years old, another cousin, older cousin, sexually penetrated myself and 2 other cousins. And the problem is that it felt good, but it felt bad.
Right.
Right. And so it was really hard. But the really hard part about it was when I tried to explain to my mom that this was happening to me. She spanked me and said I was a bad girl.
Right.
And that left the impression on me that I was so terrible for doing this.
Right. And that's something we wanna bring out. Many times it's not a stranger who does the molestation or the abuse. It's usually a family member or some friend of the family.
Later on, when in my older teens, 13 to 15, it was older people who my family trusted.
Exactly.
That did this, and relative and more relatives.
Yeah. And the fact that also you told your mom and she didn't believe you and made you feel ashamed of what happened. Now, do you remember? Can you recall some of the things that you may have done to let people know this was happening to you, in addition to telling your mom?
Yes.
What are some of the other signals that you gave them to get people's attention?
Reluctance to be around certain people, but because they were admired by the family, you know, there was this man who was the manager of a huge plantation next to our home, and he'd come over to get a cold drink or something like that, and my grandmother or my aunt would tell me to take it to him. What they didn't know is he would have me sit on his lap and do things to me, and my reluctance, they didn't read into that. They would just say, "You're such a bad girl, go," you know.
Right.
And so I just felt like I had no one to turn to.
Right. So there were barriers and lack of knowledge and awareness by the adults around to protect you.
That's right.
They didn't read the signs.
They didn't read the signs, or they didn't want to read the signs.
So that's important that you said they didn't want to, because I've talked to several other survivors, and that's one of the things that they've said is that when the victim gives the signs, a lot of times because of societal pressures, because of standing in one's community, you don't want to read the signs. You know, you try to stay in the dark, and that's why we are here trying to shine a light on the process of abuse.
Yeah, the problem is that girls tend to talk a lot about it, and women tend to do shows like this to talk about it. But men are also abused.
Yes.
My son was sexually abused from the time he was 5 years old till he was about 8 or 9.
Wow.
And a neighbor that I left him with to look after him, this man that befriended us, and I worked, and when he came home from school, and I didn't read the signs either. But this guy, later on I found out, used to hold a gun to my son's head and rape him, and then would say, "If you tell your mom or anyone, I'm going to kill you or kill your mom." So he kept the secret. But when it was going on, at first he used to love to go to this guy's house because this guy had toy soldiers and all kinds of things. But later on, he started saying, "I don't want to go," and I'd have to drag him on the ground, and I didn't read it either. So I can't blame my parents because that was his way of telling me something is happening there. The other thing that was very clear, his behavior changed so badly. He was brilliant and was in a higher grade because he was so bright, and they had to put him back. He became like a little baby again.
Academically,
he regressed, and I started putting pressure on him that he was not being a good child, and so I failed totally to read it. I only found out about it when he was about 25 years old.
Wow.
After he tried to commit suicide several times. So. Yeah.
Those are some interesting factors that you just talked about. Men being abused, boys being abused, and how they demonstrate that. They externalize it more in terms of behaviors, and girls seem sometimes to internalize it more. Yes. And so what I would like to do is have another session with you where we can continue this conversation. But before we go, I want us to take the pledge.
Yes. Okay.
The pledge is I fully commit to shining a light on child abuse.
Okay.
Okay?
And invite others to do
and
that.
invite. So
Okay.
you will challenge 4 other people.
Okay.
Name
Okay.
those 4 people to shine a light on child abuse.
Yeah.
And you can find information on the Facebook page, which is CAPA, C-A-P-A Initiative, or you can go to the Grace Place, because we're going to link our site to that, or you can also go to gcsquad.org. So we're going to shine a light on child abuse.
Yes. So I'm lighting this candle as a pledge that I will shine a light on child abuse. And I am going to challenge 4 of my friends. I don't know which ones yet, so I can't give the names.
Okay.
But they will take the pledge also.
Okay, wonderful.
And is there some financial money contribution when you take the pledge?
We would like, you don't have to, but we would like to, because we want to be able to go into diverse places, settings.
Yes.
As we talked about in the Caribbean, other developing countries, and even in the U.S., there are pockets of places in this country where child abuse is still in the dark, and kids are still being abused. Like I said, every 10 seconds, a child is raped or abused. And so we want to be able to provide counseling services for family members, community members, and the counseling for the victims themselves. So the more financial support we can get is going to help us shine a light on child abuse locally and globally.
Great, great. Well, I'm in.
Awesome, thank you, and we will have we'll have a follow-up to this conversation.
Great.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.